the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Buckeye fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Buckeyes for the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. It is Friday, August 13th in the year 2021. And no matter if you're listening to the audio version of the podcast or if you're watching us on YouTube or WKYC.com, I want to thank you for making Locked On Buckeyes a part of your day. On today's episode, we're going to highlight and discuss and dive into so many different angles in regards to the Quinn Ewers decision to skip his senior year of high school to play football at the Ohio State University this month. My buddy, friend of the podcast, Mr. Shane Larson, the host of the Game Time Guru and a part of the Scarlet and Great Empire. Go to Ohio State Football with Scarlet and Great on the YouTube to find that YouTube channel. Corey Thompson, who has been here numerous times, he is a part of that phenomenal YouTube channel as well. You can always follow me on Twitter at JStevens07. The DMs are open if you have a question, a comment, something you want to have answered here on the podcast. The DMs are open there. Instagram, same thing, at JStevens07. DMs are open there as well. You can hit up the hotline, 850-462-5442. Leave a voicemail if you want to ask an audible question or an audio question. Ask a question via the text message, that same phone number as well. Also, you can email me. If you don't want to go the social media route, but you want to connect with me and you don't want to do a phone call, but an email is great, jstevens317 at gmail.com is the way to do that. Feel free, while you follow me on Twitter, follow Shane as well at the Game Time Guru. I'm going to back away, bring in Shane Larson as him and I dive into so many different angles in regards to Quinn Ewers and his decision to skip his senior year of high school and to join the Ohio State football team this month. And joining us now here on Locked On Buckeyes, it is Shane Larson, been here numerous times before. He's on the YouTube page at Corey and Johnny Do, the Ohio State Football Scarlet and Great, something along those lines is a title, exact name. Forgive me for butchering it, but Shane, I can't butcher your first or last name. It is Shane Larson. Welcome back to the podcast.
I appreciate you, Jay. Thanks for letting me be here with you, man.
Yeah, no problem. No problem at all. Quinn Ewers, the news when it dropped, it was a big wow. Some people expected it to happen. They heard it's been in the works for quite a while, 3-4 months discussing it. But when it happens, when you get that news on your phone or on social media that a guy in high school in August, a couple weeks before the season starts, his senior season of high school, he's going to skip that year, skip his entire senior year of high school to go to Ohio State to potentially make $1 million via endorsement money, equity in the company that one of his big sponsors already. What were some initial thoughts, or what were your initial thoughts when you heard about the possibility and then the wow moment when the news was announced that Quinn Ewers was going to be at Ohio State this month?
Yeah, man. It was, like you said, I think it was in the works for a little while. I think they knew behind the scenes what was kind of coming up. But I think for the general public, even the general fan base, it was kind of a surprise. Like, it was like, whoa. And I think what happened was it educated all of us on the fact that not every state is following this thing the same way, this name, image, and likeness. I mean, across the board for college athletes, it's the same pretty much, right? But for high school athletes, there's only a handful of states that don't allow it, and surprisingly enough, Texas was one of them. And that's what was a surprising factor for me is when I heard Quinn Ewers talking about it. Like, I was like, oh, dang, I didn't realize Texas wasn't allowing their high school athletes to benefit from their name, image, and likeness, considering it's one of the top schools for high school football. And they bring in so much revenue for that state. I could not believe that. So that was a surprising factor for me, Jay. I was just like, whoa. And then when he actually, I'm going to be honest, I thought that it was going to be a scare tactic by the Ewers family. And then all of a sudden Texas was going to fold. They're going to say, okay, you got us a poker play there. But ultimately when he went over, I was like, wow. And there's a lot more that goes into that too. Like, it affects not only the school, it affects the state, it affects Ohio State football as well. And I don't think people are realizing that, like, that's going to affect the quarterback room. And it's good for competition, but there's a lot to go into that. But it also kind of like throws off the dynamic, like, oh, we've got this guy's here a year early. So it was kind of one of those surprising educational moments for me as a fan. And I cover Ohio State, like you said, with Scarlet and Gray. And I still was just like, whoa, kind of like took me back a little bit.
Yeah, it took me back. I was surprised that they kept it in-house and kept it to themselves as long as they did. With the way that news is now, there's normally a reporter, even maybe locally down there in Texas, that is close to the family or the coach that they're close to, and you're hearing rumblings. Is he going to make money? Is it possible? Will Texas change their law because of the appeal and the prospect that Quinn Ewers is? And all of a sudden, Pete Thamel of Yahoo Sports, phenomenal piece, phenomenal coverage there, breaking the story initially. And then I want to say he broke the story as well when he made the announcement. I forget who had that one first. But it doesn't matter who. You think he did?
I think he did, but I can't remember. But you're right. Go ahead.
But no matter if he had it first or not, it is something for Ohio State current players, quarterback room. It is something for the coaches. It's something for Corey Dennis, who I don't think he was expecting this as a QB coach to have a new youngster with him. And also for the high school teammates that he had down there in Texas. No, in a lot of different ways there, but there are so many different angles, Shane, you can take right now with this Quinn Ewers decision.
Yeah, I mean, first things first, like let's talk about the high school impact it has. Okay, when I was reading through this and we did a segment on it, just keep in mind for those who are listening, the high school that he plays at, the stadium was $15 million. It's a high school football stadium, $15 million. Okay, so that was mind-boggling to me. I just want people to put that into perspective. $15 million is a high school stadium. That shows how important his team, his school is to that particular community in Texas. Yet they won't allow him to leverage his name, image, and likeness. And I read in that article that was the original piece. You know, it was like a kombucha company. Mm-hmm. Kombucha company was willing to give him equity in the company and give him some stuff. He had a seven-figure deals coming his way. And all of a sudden, like now that he's going to make money, they're not going to allow that. Dude, this is a $15 million stadium that these high school kids are like bringing to your community. Are you kidding me? Like, let's be real for a second. Like, come on now. That was a little bit crazy to me. So that was the first thing I wanted to dissect there. I do feel for his high school teammates. You want to know what I thought was actually going to happen? I legitimately thought he was going to go to an academy, like IMG Academy, somewhere where he could go to another state. I legitimately thought he was just going to use this. This is another year for high school because he was going to graduate early anyways. He was going to come in here in the spring semester regardless. So I thought he was just going to go to another state, do a warm-up season, you know, just kind of keep himself. He wasn't going to play, but he was going to stay ready to rock and roll, come to Ohio State in the spring and be good to go. I was so taken back when he came over to Ohio State early. Like, he finished his class, got over here, enrolled, because he only had about 6 days to do it. And now seeing him on campus, he's going to be fighting for it. A couple questions come to mind. Scholarships, what are available for scholarships? You know, we've got a lot of there's stuff. There's some logistics that need to be made, and now you got the QB room that gets a little bit flustered. Now, are they going to redshirt Ewers? Is he actually going to compete for a starting spot? Are they going to keep the guys in there like Stroud and see how they do? I don't know, man. It's like it impacts so many people, and then the state of Texas is sitting here looking like a bunch of idiots. Now, we can get into that here in a second of what you want to talk about for high school and the future of high school, but I think Texas just lost a big one there, and it's going to at least bring awareness to it. Whether or not it changes it so early on, I don't know. But it brings awareness to it because that's arguably the best high school quarterback to ever come through that state, arguably in their history. They've had some good ones, but that's arguably their best high school athlete that's ever come through, and they just lost him. So
they did, and I connect this with a lot of the high school basketball top prospects, top 1 through 5, sometimes top 1 through 10 in any class. They are the ones that had the chance to skip their collegiate career. Not saying skip the senior year of high school, but skip their collegiate career and go to the G League. They just upped it. I think it's up to the max deal is $500,000 that you can get via a G League contract. If you're like on the G League, like that one select team where the top recruits are, you can get up to $500,000 plus your endorsements. So you can get a lot of money, 17, 18, 19 years old, no matter what age you are when you're out of high school. The basketball players aren't skipping their senior year of high school. And a lot of them are at the prep schools. They're saying, well, I want to get one more year of prep school, IMG, the Oak Hills, those type of schools, and I want to go to the G League. Quinn Ewers is saying, hey, I understand the Ohio State brand. I understand what Ohio State can do for me and my future financially. South Lake Carroll, I love you. I've been here probably his entire life. I'm going to Columbus because I think that brand helps me make more money now than if I stayed here one more for 4 or 5, 6 months, whatever the timetable is. It's a weird dynamic because high school basketball players, they think differently already because, well, the sport's different. But to see a football player do this now in 2021, I wasn't expecting it. I thought we would have seen it maybe a few years later where guys are going different routes for money specifically, but I never thought, Shane, that I would see a guy skip his senior year of high school for money to go to college, to play football.
Yeah, it's crazy how that just opened things up. But I do think, so I've talked to a couple, like Dallin Hayden and Bennett Christian, like all these guys that are coming to Ohio State in the next year or two, they're allowed to make their money, right? They live in a different state. Like every state's different regulations that way. And so they're not skipping their senior year. You don't see that. Granted, they're not the same prospects that you're seeing of Quinn Ewers. He is literally the number 1 quarterback in the country. So like it's a big difference. Like you're talking to the Tom Brady of high school athletes right now in high school football. But I think if he was in a different state, it'd be completely different. But here's what I was looking at, as I had these conversations with a couple different people, it's similar to like somebody sitting out the bowl game or something before they get drafted. Because think about it right now, I don't blame him for going over there. I think you're right. The brand for Columbus, especially since Texas isn't letting you do that as a high school athlete, brand in Columbus is huge. It's going to help him. If he would have played, what happens if he tears his ACL? You know what I mean? Or something crazy. We always talk about those. Like what happens? Maybe those deals, he'll still keep his scholarship at Ohio State. They'd probably keep him on there. He'd be recovered in a couple of years, but does that hurt his financial, name, image, and likeness? Now you're looking at that as a conversation that when we never had to even think of that for high school athletes until just now. Like we never had to think of that stuff. Now these guys are not thinking about it when they're seniors in college. They're thinking about it as seniors in high school, which is super, super crazy. But the point you made about the G League for basketball, like the difference with a football player is the physicality of the sport is a little bit different. You can play professional basketball, whether it's the G League or you go overseas, you can make good money doing whatever, and you can play at a young age. And if you're gifted enough, you can compete with those guys that are overseas, even those guys. And you can make your mark without having to go to the collegiate ranks. Whereas in football, it's a different sport. It's structured differently, but you don't have a professional option at that young that young of an age. Plus, I believe your body does need to mature a tad before you can actually get to that level. It's just a whole different ballgame from the high school ranks to the professional ranks. But it is just so crazy to me, Jay. I don't know if we're going to see this happen a ton. I think most states are probably going to get in. They're going to start seeing how it's new to everybody. I think all the states are going to look at things differently and seeing how they can help. But I'm going to ask you a question, a little reverse engineering here on your own show. Let's say an athlete, which if I could go back 15 years, 20 or 16 years when I graduated high school, what if I would have started my podcast, The Game Time Guru, back then or something? And there's a lot of kids that are starting podcasts as athletes, right? They're cool, student athletes kind of doing their own shows, having fun with it now that they have this technology available. Let's say we're starting this show as an athlete. Any other student at your school could do that and make money, right? Same as, they could do this show and make money off of it and just kind of have a fun time with it, brand it and all this stuff. But because you're an athlete, you can't do it. All of a sudden the state says, no, you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to have any sponsors that will pay you anything, or else you can't play sports here. What would your thoughts be there, man? Because I think they should be able to do these types of things and leverage their name, image, and likeness and have fun and be creative with it and educate others around them. And I want to know what your thoughts are on that, man. Like starting a podcast or something. Why won't these states allow that at that age? I think it'd be super cool for the student athletes at a high school age.
I've thought about that very thing for quite a while. And I take it this way. For the longest time, I was against collegiate athletes and high school athletes making money for, I'm going to say it's very, very, very well. So name, image, and likeness, I was never against. I don't like the whole employee aspect. And I was kind of like, there's a fine line to say you're making money because you're an athlete. You're making money because the people you're playing under, your Texas high school, whatever the organization is, NCAA, because they're making millions or billions of dollars off of you, you should be able to get money because of that aspect. If that's the case, Walmart employees will get paid a whole lot more money. Your job, my job, we will get paid a whole lot more money because the people we're under, the company's making so much money. Well, I deserve that because of that. So it's been a fine line for me, but if you put this situation, I'm a podcast host, you're a podcast host, we cover Ohio State. If we were doing this back in high school, if I was doing this back in high school, somebody else that was just in the band and I'm an athlete, I would be upset if they can make money off a podcast and I couldn't. I think we're coming in the right way, but it's also a slippery slope because I think eventually, Shane, you're going to go down to middle schools. You want to go down to elementary schools. These athletes that are going to make these money. If you want things to have the band kid who plays the trombone to have the same opportunity as the athlete who's a basketball star on his 8th grade basketball team, I have no problem with it. It's hard. It's weird for me to say that because my mind towards paying athletes is a little different maybe than it used to be. Because I do think with name, image, and likeness, I've said it here before, I'll say it again. These athletes are making money because they're human beings. And by being a human being, you're going to do some things. If someone wants to pay you money for a service, so be it. We're seeing it right now with Quinn Ewers. So I will probably be the one that says, hey, pay him. If I got a podcast and I'm in high school and I'm able to make money off of it, why can I not make money when the guy in the band is able to make money off of it? That's kind of where my mindset is right now.
I think you and I are the similar thing. I used to be completely against these athletes. And as I've grown older and I've seen, gotten into entrepreneurship and I've seen how people can get their creative side flowing, I think it's so cool. It's not even just the money aspect, right? I'm as a sports fan, I'm just throwing this out there because we're on the topic of podcast hosts. Let's say Quinn Ewers was in high school and he decided he was going to make a podcast or like a YouTube channel like the UCF kicker had before he got his scholarship revoked for having that. That is so cool to me. I would tune into that because it's like, hey, I want to see the behind the scenes from his perspective and hear what he's got to say, and get to know him as a person behind the scenes and stuff. Like, this would be cool. I would tune into that. So I think allowing these athletes, especially at a younger age, to almost not only venture into their entrepreneurship journey, but get into their creative side outside of just, their sport that they're playing would be so cool. I think they can serve so many people and reach so many people, which obviously, businesses will want to jump in on that because they want to leverage a little bit of that. But I think it's something that would be so awesome as a consumer. So that's why I asked that question, because I would love to see some of that stuff.
Oh yeah, no, I understand it, and I get guys freedom. I mean, you've been here before. You go ask me a question, I don't mind it. I want to turn this back around to you. You mentioned the body development, and Quinn Ewers going to Ohio State. We're going to go a little bit to future high school prospects here in a second. But the body development, and I've been here numerous times saying Quinn Ewers' body, no matter if he's a senior in high school right now or if he comes in January early enrollee, his body is not ready for what it will be like after he's been under Mick Mariotti's strength and conditioning program for 4 months, 6 months, 9 months, or a year. I think the body development, let's just say he was the ideal prospect. He was refined footwork, refined mechanics, upper body, shoulders, arm, release. He was refined there, but his body physically was not ready. I'm a person, I'm going to say this for a very long time. His body right now is not ready for college football. McCord, I believe, has put on 10 to 12 pounds. C.J. Stroud has put on, I believe, about 10 to 12 pounds. I'm not sure about Jack Miller the third. Forgive me for that. I don't have that number right in front of me. But these guys have put 10 to 12 pounds on. McCord just this year, early enrollee in January, and just from January until August, put on 10 to 12 pounds of muscle. And coaches are saying he looks a whole lot healthier, a whole lot better than he did when he first came here. I think the body development of Quinn Ewers is something that Buckeye fans will see a big, drastic difference between practice 1 at Ohio State and the beginning of the spring game in April of next year.
I'm with you on that. Quinn is what? He's listed at, I think he's like 6'3", 205 or something close to that.
Yeah.
And people would say, oh, that's a great size for a quarterback. But that's not what people need to realize is that's at the high school level. He's just not used to the high. I mean, you're going to be throwing a lot of balls. You're going to be throwing at faster receivers against faster defenses, getting hit by bigger guys. You got to be able to take the shots that are going to happen. As you see, Justin Fields got lit up with a cheap shot in the bowl game with Clemson, and it kind of wrecked him, and he's a very athletic guy. That's the type of shots you're going to take at this level of football. You're going to have to be able to be durable. You're going to have to go through those practices there. I can guarantee you, I don't care how big a high school football fan you are in Texas, it's not the same as Columbus. There are levels to this game. So you're going to, I think he's not ready yet. That's just the reality of it. Being in a program, part of the benefit of redshirting or just even, being there, even if you're not redshirting, but you're, just in the system, in the game with the team, the program, is that body development. He's going to need it. So those who are thinking he's going to come in here and just be light years ahead because of his natural talent, well, I would like to see how he compares natural talent wise with like his arm and everything to like Stroud and Miller and McCord, all those guys. It would be awesome. But I'll just tell you, I don't expect him to be the front runner by any means. That's all I'm going to say. I would love to wait on him and see that because I'm with you. I think you give him 6 months in the program, especially if he's going in season, he's traveling. You got to learn how to travel, be a student athlete. There's a lot that goes into it, a lot of pressures at the collegiate level, at least at that high of a level, a lot of pressures that you didn't see in high school. Being a student athlete is very difficult. You have to be very structured, and then you have to go to work and all that stuff that you're doing every single day. Get 6 months of that, put his body into it, put his mind into it. I think he's going to be a completely different person. I'm right there with you.
I got a couple players in mind that when you talk about body development and the difference between day one at Ohio State versus the spring game or their first game that they started. Mayan Williams, I've heard Jeremy Birmingham from Letterman Row talk about Mayan Williams. The first time Jeremy Birmingham saw Mayan Williams at Ohio State, he weighed like 245, 250. They called it like they literally called him in meatball for a reason. I have seen a transformation picture on Twitter from Mayan Williams when he first got to Ohio State to where he is now. He's lost about 25 pounds. I don't think he's 30. I think he's lost about 25 pounds, but he's chiseled. The gut that he had is not there. You can see that he's drastically improved his diet, drastically improved the things he's putting into his body, not just by the food, but also the fluid, the water, the sports drinks. He's altered all of that. And it's a complete mindset shift to be from where Mayan Williams was in high school to where he is now. Now, granted, it's a lot more time for Mayan Williams than what we'll see from Quinn Ewers between now to the spring game. But that's one thing you can look at and say things work with your body, either gaining weight or losing weight at Ohio State when you go there. Then Justin Fields quickly. When Justin Fields first got to Ohio State after transferring from Georgia, his body was not what it was when he started his first game when he arrived in January. Yeah, he didn't lose the weight. He put on muscle, and even between 2019 season and 2020 season, he went from like a regular healthy diet that a lot of athletes at Ohio State have to a vegan diet. Lost a little weight, chilled it out a little bit, and you saw his play. You saw his body looked a whole lot more better 2020 versus 2019 versus 2018 at Georgia. Mayan Williams' body looks a whole lot different now than when he took that official visit to Ohio State. I think sometimes people, and even ourselves, myself, I won't speak for you, myself, I lose sight of, I know about the importance of body development, the losing of the weight, the gaining of the weight. But I think we lose sight of the health part of it as far as your diet, the things you eat, and the fluids you put inside your body.
You know, it's interesting. Someone like myself, I will just speak on my development as an athlete when I was younger. I graduated high school at 17 years old. Okay. I was a young senior, 16 years old at my senior year for a week. So everyone, like all these kids reclassing now and like they're graduating when they're 18, 19 years old. But I can tell you the difference between me when I was 18, 1 year later, I was in college, right? And I was actually boxing for Boise State when we still had a team there. It was amazing. The difference between me 1 year later compared to when I was a senior basketball player at 17 years old, massive difference. And the same thing goes for when I was 19, 20, 21. My body developed naturally as you start to hit the weights differently. Your body develops differently, the things you put into your body. So I want people to understand it is so, I'm thinking to myself, Jay, wow, what if I was 18, like most of these seniors are in high school? Like I would have been in so much better shape, would have been better prepared, had different, I would just been a different animal. Body development is so important. So important. I want people to realize that, especially at these positions where you're going to be, it's a wear and tear on your body. It's so important. But at Ohio State, even somebody that we probably don't want to talk about is Tate Martell. Mm-hmm. I watched him, and even if you watch him in high school, super talented guy, athletic, whatever, he goes into Ohio State, and he was another one. If you ever look at his transformation, just looking at how much more physically fit he got, mm-hmm. how much better, and it all comes down to the nutrition side of things and how they take care of him with their strength and conditioning program. It is so important, and it plays a major part in their performance on the field, which is another reason why I think it's like, hey, it's cool and all to have like a true freshman start for you if they're talented enough, but there is some blessings to having guys that have been in the program for a while and developing, because that does play a major factor in the longevity of their career.
It does. I got one more guy for you. It's going back to the high school ranks, a 2023 prospect. I know there's a 2022 quarterback. I think it's a guy going to Clemson. I forget his name. Forgive me for not knowing his name or the exact recruit where he's going. But Arch Manning in 2023, the quarterback, he's the next highly sought-after quarterback, not just because his dad is Cooper Manning. He's a part of the Manning family with his uncles being Eli and Peyton. grandpa being Archie. I mean, he has this lineage of football. And I do think if Cooper was the guy he was in high school, going to college and going to the NFL like his trajectory seemed to be, Cooper would have been a dog on the football field if, unfortunately, the injury did not derail him and force him to stop playing football at an early age. But Arch Manning is interesting because many people, I even someone asked this question recently, said, do you think Arch Manning will reclassify and do a Quinn Ewers move? My answer was twofold. No, I think he enjoys the high school level way too much to do that. Not saying Quinn Ewers doesn't enjoy it. Don't get me wrong. Also, Arch Manning can make as much money as Quinn Ewers could if he reclassified and went early because he has a family and the dude's a dog on the field. But I said I don't think Cooper Manning will allow his son to do so. I have never talked to the Mannings, never gone down that road. I could be completely wrong, but it's just from that family and how they view high school football. I don't know if Cooper will allow Arch Manning to do that, to go and forsake his senior year for some money. The Mannings don't need the money. Quinn Ewers' dad has said in the article that you read, the Ewers don't need the money. But Arch Manning is one of those guys people will be looking at it and saying, well, could Arch do what Quinn is doing? Do you see an Arch or another guy on the football side reclassifying before his senior year starts and saying, guys, I'm not going to be with you guys in a couple weeks for game one or senior year of high school. I'm going to be going to Ohio State or Texas or Oklahoma or whatever big brand school it is to make upwards to $1 million plus via NIL money. The Arch Manning thing is interesting because he is the next big name. And I'm pretty sure these companies will be going after him saying, look, do what Quinn Ewers did. Get the money. We'll take care of you. And he's like, man, he just might enjoy high school football way too much to do something like that.
That's a very interesting point. That's an interesting one. And it comes down to the ethics and stuff like that and the morals. Like you mentioned, the family. I don't know if dad will want him to do that. I wonder if things will change in that sense, Jay, if we give it another year. That's what I'm just wondering. It's all so new, and everyone says they have everyone's got an opinion until the dollar's like, I can't speak from a personal experience, but I wonder if I was a high school athlete and I love what I'm doing. My whole life, I've just been born and raised watching high school football. I'm playing, we're competing at a very high level. I know I'm going to get my college paid for wherever I'm going because of scholarships, but all of a sudden they start, I'm seeing like 7-figure, 8-figure deals coming my way. Like, oh my goodness, if I were to leave right now, I could retire for the rest of my life. It doesn't matter what happens next year or the year after. I could be retired. I'd be set. Like, I don't know if that would speak differently because money does talk sometimes. And so I don't know. It's easy to say that he would stay in high school and do his thing. But I wonder if the money starts coming in and there's an opportunity there that it could be different. Granted, he does have the experience in the family. There's money that runs in that family because of how successful they've all been in their football career. So whether it's a direct lineage or to his uncles and grandparents and whatnot, you know what I mean? They know what money looks like. And so it's not foreign to him. I'm not sure what Quinn Ewers' situation was like. That could have been the first time that's happened to them, right? They may not know that exact situation. So it could play a little bit of a different factor, having the experience that they have. But I don't think I think that might be he's the next guy that's got that big of a name, big of a name with that big of leverage. And so it probably will be another year or so before we actually see something like that happening. So I look forward to seeing it. I just don't know what to expect from him because it's going to be, we'll see what happens in the next year, how things shift for the high school side of things.
One more name I'm going to throw at you, Bronnie James. LeBron is someone that doesn't need the money. Bronnie could easily make upwards to $1 million. I don't know for sure. I'm not going to say definitively, but via endorsements, and I'm sure LeBron could help, Rich Paul could help Bronnie get while he's in high school there at Sierra Canyon. There's a good chance that he could make a lot of money via NIL while he is in high school. The reclassification, everyone's saying LeBron possibly playing basketball with his son. We already see basketball players reclassify not a lot, but a higher clip more often than high school football players, just reclassification in and of itself. Bronnie James is a name. Arch Manning is big. Bronnie James is big. These are some big-time names with big-time last names with families that are not hurting for money, with families that know money and they know business as well. Sometimes in business, I'm not a business owner, but I do know sometimes in business and in life, you have to take a risk. maybe this risk for Quinn Ewers is what he wanted to take for the money. Would Arch Manning take that risk? I personally don't think so. That's just my own opinion, speculation, not something I'm going to definitively say. Bronnie James, I have no idea, but that's another name, Shane, basketball side, where reclassifications at his level, it could happen, and you might see somebody, it could happen. Will LeBron go that route? I don't know. Will LeBron say, hey, man, enjoy it while you got it, because high school only happens once? We're not sure, but those are two names, Arch Manning and Bronnie James, that the reclassification for money, that's one of these companies, those companies will be coming for these two guys very, very hard.
Oh, yeah. Bronnie James, I think here's what you might see out of that. I think LaMelo actually started this swing of things.
Yes.
LaMelo kind of showed the world a different side of the basketball side of things when he was first with the JBA or whatever you want to call it, whatever. So he went professional. Then he was able to play high school basketball at a different school that allowed you to after you've already dropped out. But then he goes over and he plays professionally in Australia for a year. And then he gets drafted. He kind of did things in an unorthodox way. But what's interesting to me, that I in Idaho, we see a lot of people reclassing to stay in school later. So we've got like 16-year-old freshmen coming into Idaho so that they can make a name for themselves and get their college paid for. That's kind of what we're seeing. Well, the conversation you and I are having right now is if they're going to reclass and leave early. That's what's crazy to me is like there's two separate sides to it. But with Bronnie, assuming that the rules stay the same and you can't leverage your name, image, and likeness in high school, right? And they don't allow it where they're at and whatever. Assuming that's the case, when it gets to the time, like in a year, when it's there, I would not be surprised if LeBron had him go over to Australia or into Europe where there might be a decent, there's basketball at the professional level. Because if you ever look, I spoke with Justinian Jessup. He played for Boise State, got drafted by the Warriors, but he played a year in Australia. It is professional basketball. So it's teaching you the professional level of basketball. So you're learning how to practice all day. That's your job now. You don't have school anymore. You're practicing all day. You're playing with grown men. You're doing, you're learning how to lift weights and strength conditioning, and all the things you want at the professional level, same as in the G League. And you're getting paid a decent amount of money for it. But I would not be surprised if we saw something like that, whether he goes to the G League or he goes overseas a year early just to play, to get ready for it. And then he can cash in. Cause I don't know. I don't think LeBron would have a problem with Bronny going over there doing his thing. I really don't. I think that might be a situation we could see if LeBron feels like his son is good enough and prepared well enough for the professional ranks of basketball. LeBron would know if he is or not. Then I wouldn't be surprised if he went.
Yeah, I forgot all about that. Overseas, Australia, New Zealand, those other places where they're welcoming to the 17, 18, 19-year-old high school or young men in America. Hey, we know we're only talk about 1 year rental. We know we're only going to get you for 1 year. We're going to help you be the best you can be. RJ Hampton, another one that did the same thing, played over there in that league over there. I think it was Australia where he was as well. It's going to happen again. It will happen more. I don't know about the CFL route. The CFL will take these kids out of high school and they can make money up there in Canada before coming down here back to the States. So many different angles. Shane, we're out of time, man. I hate time limits. I would love to keep going longer, but we're out of time. If you could let everybody know where they can connect with you on social media and also where they can catch your shows as well.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Jay. Yeah, so if you guys want, come follow me on Twitter at the Game Time Guru. On Instagram, I'm at Game Time Guru without the on the end of it. And yeah, if you want to subscribe to my own podcast, it's called the Game Time Guru. I interview sports figures every week. And then for Ohio State coverage, I'm partnering in with Corey and Johnny over at Scarlet and Great. Like Jay said at the beginning, Ohio State football with Scarlet and Great on YouTube. That's where we're at talking Ohio State football. But yeah, that's where my stuff's at. I'd love to chat with anybody who wants to chat sports with me, man. That's what I do.
Guys, you can follow me on Twitter at jsteven07. Anytime Shane can come on the podcast talking ball, I love it. We enjoy this time together. We're going to just continue to keep you up to date with what's going on in fall camp. A lot of developing storylines, a lot of things that'll be coming up. And pretty soon, as Ryan Day says, he'll be announcing a starting quarterback. Who will it be? We'll discuss that as camp goes on.